You may have heard about the new Windows Copilot Plus PCs, which supposedly have a bunch of different exclusive AI features that are only available on those. But what exactly are those features, and are they actually good? I couldn't make this video earlier because I didn't have a Copilot Plus PC, but HP reached out and sent me one so that I could make the video. And specifically, this is the HP Omnibook X Flip. Now, don't worry, even though, yes, HP is sponsoring the video, this is not just a big ad for the laptop. The focus really is going to be on the Windows features themselves. You might have already heard of some of the Copilot Plus features, like the famous or maybe infamous recall, which, yes, you can turn off, but there are a bunch more, around a dozen, that we're going to look at. But before we get into that, let me tell you about today's sponsor. Like I said, it's the HP Omnibook X Flip. It's powered by the Intel Core Ultra 7 processor, giving you greater speed and performance for everything from productivity tasks to content creation and gaming, as well as enabling you to use the most AI experiences across your device, making everything you do easier, faster, and better. That's thanks to the processor's Neural Processing Unit, or NPU, making this a fully fledged AI PC. The NPU is capable of up to 47 trillion operations per second, or TOPS, so it's able to support all of the latest Windows Copilot Plus features. And check this out, the screen is also a touchscreen and can completely flip backwards, hence the name. So you could use it in other modes, like as a tablet, a tent configuration, or this reverse mode. But it's also packed with powerful software, like the HP AI Companion. You can have the AI assistant work with your own files by adding them to collections called libraries, then, for example, ask it to analyze it, compare the data, or summarize the info. It can analyze images and diagrams, Word documents, PDFs, and more. You can also just prompt it without files, or you can use the snip to prompt feature to instantly take a screenshot and ask it, for example, to make a table from the data you just screenshotted, and it will do it. And for devices with at least 32 gigabytes of RAM, the AI models can be run purely locally on device in addition to the cloud mode. Further, the HP Omnibook X Flip comes with the Polycamera Pro app with both AI-powered enhancements and advanced manual controls if you want, like the ability to generate a custom magic background based on your room, or add a spotlight effect and background blur. It even supports color keying for physical green screens and features like manual or automatic framing, color adjustments, multiple cameras and audio device controls, presentation layouts, color filters, and more. So whether you're a student or an on-the-go professional, definitely consider the HP Omnibook X Flip for a perfect blend of portability and performance. And with all that being said, let's get into what all those Copilot features are all about. All right, so we can start off with what I would consider one of the more compelling Copilot Plus features, and that is called Click to Do. This feature is activated either by pressing the Win key and then Q, or the Win key and clicking. And then it activates by showing a little animation, and a bar appears at the top, and you'll notice the cursor becomes a circle. It basically detects text and other content like images on the screen and lets you do stuff with it. So for a really basic example, you could select some of the text and copy it, or you could also type into the search bar to search through that text. If you click on or select a section of text with more than 10 words, you'll have some additional options, like being able to summarize it, or create a bulleted list, or rewrite it in a few different forms, such as casual, formal, or refine it. And like I touched on, you don't actually have to select the exact text. If you click next to some paragraphs, it seems to be smart enough to know which ones you're doing. Anyway, if you select one of the actions, it will pop up a separate little window that you can copy it from, so it doesn't change the actual text, so you don't have to worry about that. And that also means you can use this on text that's on a website or something that's not changeable. It also recognizes images. If you click on those, you'll have the options to do stuff like remove the background with Paint, erase objects with photos, blur the background with photos, do a visual search with Bing, or just save it. Though keep in mind, for all of these, it effectively seems to just take a screenshot of the image, not use the full saved file resolution. And it also doesn't always seem to get the full image. It leaves some edges off. So you might be better off just saving the image file normally, or just using the snipping tool manually. But for some of the actions, that would be fine. You can also activate Click to Do. If you use the snipping tool, that top bar, there's a button to do that. Or also you can just run the Click to Do app directly. And I also noticed if you have Recall enabled, which I'll talk about in a second, there's a button that appears in the Click to Do bar to open that. All right, now moving on, we have Recall, which you may have heard of. It's the thing where it basically takes screenshots or snapshots of everything you're doing at different periods of time and then lets you search through it. Now, this one is definitely controversial. A lot of people have been hating on it for privacy or security reasons. It definitely has at least been improved in terms of security since they first announced it, but I can share my thoughts on that in a minute. Let's just look at what it actually does. So first of all, I will point out it is not enabled by default. It's opt-in, and after using the computer a couple times, I noticed that when I logged in, it showed a full screen thing asking if I did want to enable it. If you do decline it here, like I did the first time as a test, to activate it again, you can't just simply search for it. It's not like in the settings menu at all. You actually have to go into the turn Windows features on and off menu, and from there, it basically installs the feature. So it's not like if you decline it, it's gonna magically turn itself on, because it's not even installed at all at that point. And also, I'll get to this, but if it is enabled in taking snapshots, you'll see a thing in the taskbar. So basically, if you have to ask whether or not it's on your computer taking snapshots, then it's not. If you do enable recall and it's activated and taking snapshots, it'll show a little system tray icon, so you'll know that it's doing that. Or you can also go into the little action pane, and there's a quick action box for recall as well that you can activate even if it's not active in taking snapshots. In any case, from this menu, you can open the main recall app, or you can also pause the snapshots until tomorrow, or open the settings to further customize how it works. If you go into the settings and toggle off the snapshots from there, it will disable the snapshots until you manually turn it back on. So it's not like always pausing just for a day. And also toggling it off from here will not delete the previous snapshots unless you actually click delete snapshots. So you can turn it on and leave it off for as long as you want and turn it back on and still be able to access the history. I'll come back to the other settings in a second. Now, as for using Recall, it has its own app, so you can launch it through the start menu in addition to that little pop-up window. And how it works is there's a bar at the top that you can scrub through and see the different snapshots for different stuff, and it does text recognition on all the screenshots. So of course, you can search through the text and it'll show you the different snapshots that have that text in it, but it will also auto-detect certain types of text, like if it's a link to a website, you have the option to open that site. And if you go to delete a snapshot, it gives you additional options based on that context, like whether or not you want to delete all the snapshots that have that same app or are on that same website, because it has built-in support for certain browsers. Back in the recall settings, which you can get to through the main settings window, then privacy and security, then recall and snapshots, you have some additional options like being able to prevent it from taking snapshots of certain apps or even certain websites, assuming the browser is supported, but it's going to be all the big browsers like Chrome, Edge. And it also won't capture private browsing tabs like incognito mode. And there's another option which is on by default to filter out sensitive information, which seems to be mostly credit card info and also account numbers and national ID card numbers. There's a list on Microsoft's site for what it does filter out and try to detect. So you have a decent amount of control over it. And I believe there's also an API that developers can use to basically tell Windows from the app itself, don't take a screenshot of me. So presumably a lot of apps will have an option to toggle that on, like a password manager. You probably don't want it taking screenshots of that. So I imagine certain apps might tell it not to do it by default. Again, this is obviously kind of a controversial feature. A lot of people might not like the idea of it just periodically taking screenshots of what you're doing. So I personally might not be enabling it anytime soon until I learn more about it, but it's definitely a personal thing. All right, next up we have Windows Studio Effects, which will show up in the little action pane, and it applies effects to your camera basically. In the Microsoft help articles, it says that it requires a built-in camera and available effects vary by device. And I can get to what I found that to mean later, but for the most part, for any Copilot Plus branded PC, these are going to be at least the ones you see. For background effect, this effectively just blurs the background. You have an option for none, standard, which is very blurry, or portrait, which is less blurry. For eye contact, this sort of shifts the way your eyes look to make it look like you're more gazing directly at the camera as opposed to down at the screen or something. Personally, I'm not sure I like the way it looks. I don't know if I want to enable it. Maybe it's just because I'm looking at the before and after and I wouldn't notice it if it was always just on, but you can decide for yourself. And automatic framing is pretty easy to understand. It just zooms in and sort of follows you around. Now, there are additional studio effects and settings that are apparently at the moment only available on Copilot Plus PCs with a Snapdragon X processor. In the Microsoft article specifically, it mentions creative filters, portrait light, and another eye contact option called teleprompter. Creative filters is just kind of like video effect filters for colors and stuff. Portrait light sort of lights you specifically, but not necessarily the background. Though for these two effects, most webcam software probably has this built in some capacity anyway. Now for the eye contact teleprompter option, it's basically the same as what I showed you, except apparently it is more extreme. It makes it look like you're really looking directly at the camera, as opposed to the current one standard seems to just kind of nudge your eyes a bit and not necessarily look directly at it. All right, moving on, we have another feature that I think is legitimately useful, and that is improved Windows search. Basically, in addition to just searching for the file names or the text content, it will have what's called semantic indexing, where it'll kind of use AI to analyze what's actually going on in the file. So for example, if I search for grass, it will include images that have grass in it, even though there's no tags or anything in the details for what that image is of. But of course, it also includes file names and stuff like that. The way you could tell if your computer can use this is if in the search bar it shows the little sparkles on the magnifying glass. Though I've noticed it seems to only let you do this from certain directories, like the documents, music, video, or photos directories, the libraries. If you do it somewhere else, like just from the C drive, it will just show the regular magnifying glass. Apparently, this type of search is also in the settings menu. You'll notice the sparkles there, and it even says that it can use AI, so you can do more natural type search queries instead of having to search for keywords necessarily. And also the same thing applies to the start menu. You can do a similar thing there. Next up, we have live captioning with translation. So live captioning is on all Windows 11 PCs, where it just transcribes based on the audio playing. However, with the Copilot Plus, it will also be able to translate into English from whatever language is playing, and you don't have to set the language either. So for example, if I'm playing a video on YouTube that the audio is in German and my own language is set to English, it is smart enough to recognize it as German and just translate it automatically. And it seems to be roughly real time, kind of the same delay that just the regular transcription has too. So that could come in handy if you're watching something in another language that doesn't have already translated subtitles of some kind. All right, now we can talk about some Windows Copilot Plus features that are specific to certain Windows apps like Paint and Photos. For Microsoft Paint, one of them is called Co-Creator, where you type in a text description of what you want to draw, and then on the canvas, you draw a sketch of it or try to draw it in general. And then on the right-hand side, it will try to generate an AI image based on that sketch or drawing. Personally, I have found this to not be very good at all. It's probably just a very small model. Maybe they'll improve it in the future, but it was really rough. It didn't really generate anything resembling what I was drawing, though I'm not good at that. There's also another feature called Generative Fill, which is different from Generative Erase, though apparently this is also one of those that are only on the Snapdragon-based devices. Anyway, the difference with Generative Erase is the Generative Fill, you can actually type in what you want to replace it with, whereas the Erase just erases whatever you select and fills it in with surrounding stuff. Now, over in the Photos app, if you go to edit a photo, there's an AI feature called Restyle Image, where you give it a text description of just the general style and look of the image, or use one of the pre-made prompts, and then it will regenerate that image with that style. However, again, this seems to be really low resolution and not very good, so probably not something I'm going to use. Now, as for future features for Copilot Plus, there's a few. One of them in the Photos app called Relight, where you can sort of adjust the lighting in the photo if it wasn't very good lighting. Apparently, this is already available for the Snapdragon X CPU devices now, and they said that in the next few months, it'll be available on Intel and AMD Copilot Plus devices. Another feature coming to the Photos app is super resolution, basically image upscaling. Apparently, this one is also on ARM devices or Snapdragon devices, and they said that in mid-2025, which is kind of right around now, it'll be coming at some point to Intel and AMD Copilot devices. And then another general Windows feature is called voice access. I think this is more of an accessibility thing, but it will let you control and do commands for your computer with voice. And once again, this is apparently on Snapdragon devices now, and then later this year for all other Copilot Plus PCs. I really wish Microsoft would address this fragmentation of the different features. I think the reasoning is because the Snapdragon and other ARM64 devices are a different architecture than Intel and AMD, which are x86. And I guess when they first created the Windows Copilot Plus branding, they were the only ones making those devices, and they were doing it with ARM, with Snapdragon. So they kind of built all the features for that. And then when they decided to open it up to Intel and AMD CPUs, because they had a certain level of NPU threshold, 40 trillion operations per second, but they hadn't converted all the features over to the x86 architecture. So now you just have this difference where they say, oh, the feature's available on Copilot Plus PCs, but then you have to check if it's the right one. It's a mess. I think they're trying to bring all the features to all the Copilot Plus PCs, obviously, but they're not doing a very good job about which ones are coming and when. So if you notice Microsoft talking about some feature and you don't have it on yours, that's probably why. It's just going to be later. I don't know why they don't just release them at the same time and make sure that they're done for both architectures, but whatever. Anyway, enough rambling for me. I'd be curious to know what you guys think. Do any of these features seem compelling for you? Or maybe you don't care about any of them. We could talk about that down in the comments. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Absolutely annihilate and smash the like button. Thanks again to HP for sponsoring, and be sure to check out the HP Omnibook X Flip for your next Copilot Plus AI PC. If you want to keep watching, the next video I'd recommend is where I talked about should you upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11 if you're still using it. I'll put that link right there. You can click on, learn everything you need to know. And if you want to subscribe, I try to make videos about twice a week, usually Wednesday and Saturday, so it should be worth it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.